Greetings everyone, my name is Etterville, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Mega Man Maker. During the last part, I covered 6 Veersmith levels, so in this part, I'll be covering at least 2 or 3 longer Veersmith levels, starting out with this one. Getting Over It Without Joe, GJ Gaming by Joe, 39 plays and a score of 2. As always, if you want one of your levels to be featured in a part like this one, please leave both the level name and level ID either in the comment section below or direct message me on Twitter. Also, as always, the full disclaimer of this entire LP series is linked in the description below. Also in the description are the timestamps for all the levels I cover in these parts, so if you want to check if your level is covered, open up the description. If you're wondering, the title of this level is a reference to the game Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, which was a rather difficult physics-based platformer where you played as a guy stuck in a cauldron whose only means of movement was a pickaxe, with a rather awkward mouse-only controlled control scheme. It was also known to be fiendishly difficult, and it had no checkpoints, and in many moments it was possible to lose all of your progress, or a major dose of your progress. And judging by the title, I guess the same will happen. We have nothing. We only have Mega Man 2 physics, but we can't shoot or slide either. And just to demonstrate, just like Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, to the left is the only place where you can explicitly die, by falling off screen, falling into a water moat. I wonder how accurate this stage is going to be to the original one. Is this going to be a recreation, a partial recreation of the original game in Mega Man Maker Engine? Or is it going to be something unique? We'll have to see. The first thing I've noticed is that there are 5 E-tanks, or a lot of E-tanks you start out with. Also of note, Joe reminded me of this or alerted me to this at the beginning. There are no checkpoints whatsoever. If I die anywhere here, it's all the way back to the beginning. So no checkpoint abusing for me. And of course, just like the original game, there are some, let's just say, jerk maneuvers. Although, unlike the original Getting Over It, this actually has some dynamic elements that are moving. This time, I'll wait for the gyro platforms to go. It also seems that we have multiple routes to go through. I just wonder if some of these will lead up to dead ends. Hopefully not. Now I need to repeatedly jump on the Shadow Man platform until that respawns. I wonder if there are going to be some alternate routes throughout this stage. That'll be neat to see. Because I get the feeling that the lower right route led to a different area. Oh, tricky. I see. Oh. Well, that kind of sucked. I was hoping it wouldn't push me off of it, but apparently that happened. It isn't too bad because I have a lot of leeway to get back here. But just like Getting Over It, if I fall too far, I could potentially end up back at the beginning of this stage and be forced to repeat it. So let's see how lucky/unlucky I get. Oh goody, yellow force beams, my favorite. Okay, you just gotta be a bit quick over there. Oh no. And I'm sent all the way back down here, of course, because magnets. Yep, all the way back down over here, and I'm forced to restart, of course. Not really forced to restart, but I'm forced to go all the way back over here, which is exactly where the other pathways led up to, and now I'm back at the beginning because my button input didn't register. Alright, so we actually unlocked something in this stage, and that is the top spin. Although, judging by difficulty, this will probably work against me, unfortunately. So I gotta be really careful of what's going on. Thankfully I have 9 E-tanks because we have these 1 ladder blocks. Well, we made it into space at the very least, but now of course we have killer bullets to make our lives even more miserable. And just for safety, I will be consuming one of my E-tanks here. Better safe than sorry after all. Well, I see what I need to do over there. Which is immediately run face first into all of those killer bullets, which will happen every time I go off screen and re-enter. Also, be careful of ice physics over there. If there's one thing I'm really thankful for, it's that Joe actually gave some leniency over there, in the fact you can actually... Well, I'm gonna fall down somewhere. Rats, I need to repeat part of this segment. It's not too bad though. Phew, I did it legitimately. I did not have to resort to using the level editor. And boy, does it live up to its reputation of being, or its inspiration. It was rather frustrating in several scenarios, but honestly, I still enjoyed it. The things that really brought down this engine, or rather this level, weren't rather the level itself, although I can see why it'd be frustrating. If this was a normally designed level, I suggest to add at least 4 or 5 more checkpoints to prevent players from repeating it over and over. Really, the main thing that caused most of my deaths, or rather most of the jump cuts, was the fact that my controller inputs didn't register properly. If those controller input issues never happened, I think I would be able to complete the stage at least 5 to 8 minutes earlier, because without the jump cuts, this level took at least 20 minutes to complete. Without all the failures, it would probably take about 15 to 12 minutes. The main areas which I had problems with were with the batons until I realized damage boosting, the areas with the magnets below, and that one segment with the 2 crash lifts next to each other, but that was more due to button inputs not registering properly. Nonetheless, I think I found this to be enjoyable, and unlike copying the terrain from Getting Over With, this created its own unique things. So I would say to give this at least a 5 or 6 out of 10, probably somewhere between par and above par. Second on the lineup is Mega Man 1 Megamix by MrDocRobot, 29 plays and a score of 4. As the level creator informed me, this will be a megamix of all of the levels from Mega Man 1 combined into one stage. Because of this, the stage is at least 154 screens long, so it's gonna be a big one. And judging by how long it takes, it may be the final level of this part, because I have noticed the longer loading time. Also, something I forgot to note about the previous level by Joe, all of the gimmicks and special things were introduced in safe environments first, and then were shown in more difficult environments. Like what happened with the Shadow Man platforms, the Gyro platforms, the Plant Man platforms, etc. They were first in safe environments, and in more dangerous environments, which was really helpful for things like the magnets. Let's just hope that this stage is a bit easier, and the engine doesn't croak up more. Okay, you have 8 choices, so we're taking cues from Mega Man 1 Powered Up. In fact, we have the intro stage theme from Mega Man Powered Up. Aha! So we start out with no weapons, well just a Mega Buster, but we need to unlock all of the Roadmaster weapons, well minus 1, from Mega Man 1. The minus 1 being the Brick Drop because we do not have the Super Arm from Gutsman. So in order to get to the final fight against Dr. Wily, probably the Fortress level remixes, we need to complete all of the 8 levels. And each of the levels is indicated by the bottom tile set, as you can see there. Let's start out by going to the bottom right. This should be Bomb Man stage, and I was right. Oh goody, the stutters are back. It's a little bit worse than the getting over with, actually. So we're gonna have short remixes of every stage from Mega Man 1 / Powered Up. And I guess after getting all 8 special weapons, we'll have remakes of the Wily Fortress stages. At the very least, we do not have those bomb explosion enemies who jump up from the pits. And of course we have the Mega Man 1 physics, or rather Mega Man 2 physics. We can only jump and shoot, no sliding or charging. Thankfully, this is the Mega Man Maker version, which is a lot more consistent than its Mega Man 1 counterpart. If I recall correctly, we should have the boss quarters like before, so it can drop down immediately here, where we'd face Bomb Man, but instead we just get a full life restore, the Hyper Bomb, and a checkpoint. Good. Let's go to Guts Man first, and let's get over with the Guts Lift segment first. Or rather, the Crash Lift replacement. In some ways that's better than the Guts Lifts. After all, it's a little more consistent than jumping over the times when they fall over, but instead we have these spike jumping segments, which are gonna be a problem because the spikes are not squarish and the hitboxes are a lot bigger. At the very least, at the end of these mini stages are checkpoints, so it isn't too bad. So I do appreciate that. If there's one thing I would like for this level, it'd be the skull barrier, but of course this is Mega Man 1, so we don't have access to the skull barrier or similar. Sad. And of course we have the Picket Men because they originated from Guts Advance stage. But because we have the Hyper Bomb, we might as well use it to destroy the Picket Men easily. I always found it kind of funny that the Hyper Bomb took 2 shots to destroy the Tellies, but the Elect Beam just one-shots them. I guess it fries them. I also like that most of the enemies in this stage originate from Mega Man 1. There are no enemies from future Mega Man titles. Outside of probably the Sniper Joes, who originated from Mega Man 2, at least this version. To be honest, I was expecting that Crash Lift / Guts Lift replacement segment to be a lot harder. And of course we get the Brick Drop, the replacement for the Super Arm. Hopefully the Super Arm can be implemented into this engine in the future. Now going to Elec Man stage. Good thing I have the Super Arm because I think I'll need it in order to unlock something, like the Magnet Beam. I remember that segment. I also remember this segment. Thankfully, unlike the original stage, we have some weapons that can directly fire upwards that aren't the Elect Beam. Oh sure, we had stuff like the Rolling Cutter, but that fired in the arc. But with stuff like the Brick Drop, we can easily hit those enemies who arise from the top and bottom, especially the top. Is there something to the left there? Nope. Oh, that stutter there kind of spooked me. They always seem to appear on the most inopportune moments. I'll take this route because the left route seems a little bit too inconsistent. I would honestly take the left route if I could destroy those spines. I probably should have gone through Cutman segment first. And my suspicion was right, we do need the brick drop in order to unlock the magnet beam. So that's nice. That should make the Wily Fortress stage a lot easier. I wonder though, will this Megamix's version of the Wily Fortress stage 1 or 2 require usage of the magnet beam? We'll have to see that. Oh, I guess this is the second part of the corridor. Yep, we have all these elect beam turrets. It's not as bad as the original because we have a lot more leniency. So we get a full health restore, the elect beam, and another checkpoint. 3 down, 5 to go. Let's go through Cutman. Usually I'd go through Cutman or Bombman stages first, as those are the easiest. Good thing the bladers are replaced with the tellies, they're a lot less annoying. And unlike the original Cutman stage, we do not have the annoying hopper enemies. Really, most of these segments are about the same difficulty as their Mega Man 1 counterparts. I just wish I had access to the slide in order to make this stage a little bit more go faster, or feel more responsive, but of course it would kind of damage the integrity of this being a Megamix stage. I don't remember those enemies being in Cutman stage, so there's a difference here. And now we get access to the rolling cutter, which I'll probably barely use here. 4 down, 4 to go. Let's go through Fireman segment next. All these intro segments for every stage or every remake seems to be as close as a clone to the original as possible, and then further on it deviates from the original, probably with better level design, I would say. And of course we have the fire bars, so this segment would be a lot easier if I had access to the Ice Slasher. And of course we have the fire tellies. Well, this is a lot easier than the original segment where we had all those fireways flying all over the place. And we have the Metal Man background for whatever reason instead of the original Fireman background. Strange. I guess it's because it wasn't part of the engine, or this background looks a bit better. This was another segment, I believe, where we had all the redirecting fire waves. Otherwise, this was a fun segment. Yeah, and this was also another segment with that, I believe. I'm damage boosting here because I know there's going to be a full health restore at the end of this segment. And thankfully, all the stuttering seems to have subsided. And to be quite honest as well, I know I'm repeating the word honest a lot here, but the brick drop is a lot better than the super arm. After all, you can use it anywhere to spawn blocks everywhere. Okay, 5 down, 3 to go, let's go through Iceman. I just wonder if there are any secrets I'm missing in this stage. Hopefully the level author can inform me of them at the end of this. And judging by the time I'm taking on the stage, this will be the final level of this part. I was planning on covering a third level, but instead I'll cover it in the next part as my first stage. Oh, the Yoga Block segment, I remember this. A lot less annoying than the original segment, that's for sure. Oh boy, the footholder segment. And of course, we probably have ice physics working against us as well. And the stuttering has returned. Yep, we have ice physics. Oh, the brick drop is such a great Sniper Joe killer. If you position it just right, you only need to use 2 rounds of brick drop in order to destroy the Sniper Joe. And you have 28 uses of it, it makes it even better. I mean, it does really well against any enemy which has a large profile, like the Big Eyes and almost any mini-boss. And we get access to the Ice Slasher, which I will utilize in several scenarios. So 6 down, 2 to go. Let's go through Oil Man's segment. Whoops, I have access to the Fire Waves, or rather Firestorms, so I should be utilizing that more. After all, it is a pretty useful weapon. Oh, hello there, Crazy Cannon. Or Shotman Mach 1. You weren't there in Mega Man 1. Oh yeah, and also because this is Mega Man powered up, we have separate blocks for separate segments of the stages. They were one of the first games to introduce it after all. Let me try this again actually, just to show you how powerful the brick drop is, if you don't know already. 2 usages, we just one-shot the Tama. And for this optional segment, we get access to the NATO. That's going to be super useful, and honestly, I would have liked to had it before I went through the Gutsman segment. But because of it, I can now just skip several of these segments. Of course, I could also just use the Magnet Beam. But of course, if I take this route, I need to have access to the Fire Wave, or rather Firestorm. I'm really liking that these stages are opening up more as I unlock more and more special weapons. And all of these remind me of the original stages from the original games, although this seems to be a bit shorter than the original stages, from what I can recall. You weren't there in Mega Man 1 either, Colton. That was kind of a jerk move over there. And now we gain access to the oil slider. If the level creator had access to adding multiple bosses in the stage, would they actually add multiple bosses? It'd be neat to see. Final segment, Time Man. I probably won't be using the oil slider here because it's a little bit too dangerous. Originally in Time Man stage we had those hammers, but because we don't have access to the mallets or slash hammers, which worked in a 2.5D perspective, we instead have the crushers. Darn, I thought there would be a secret down there. Nonetheless, I quite enjoy this stage. I'd say it's my favorite level of the part, although there are only 2 levels in this part anyway, so it's not saying much. It's a nice trip down memory lane. Although many of the shield attackers seem to be despawning. Oh, another thing I like about this stage is that we unlock a lot more special weapons than were actually in Mega Man 1 / Mega Man Powered Up. I mean, we have access to the NATO and Shine, for example. That's one way of filling up a full repertoire of weapons. And because there's a full refill of weapon energy at the top of this tower, or back at the beginning segment / stage select segment, I have nothing to worry about for using my special weapons, or at least most of them. And now I gain access to the time slow. 8 down, 0 to go, so up we go. So let's refill everything first. Brick drop? I was wondering why I wasn't getting refilled. So now let's open up all these gates. Oh, and you do need access to the magnet beam. Okay then. Thanks for the free tank. Now we're in the Wily Fortress remakes. I expected as much. We're immediately introduced to this big eye, just like before. Thankfully, we have access to Brick Drop, which just murderizes them. And of course, we need access to the Super Arm, or the Elect Beam, but the Elect Beam won't work over here. So we have to go through the 4 Wily Fortress stages. No wonder the level creator warned me of how long this was. At the very least, I have an alternative to using the magnet beam, that being the NATO. Oh, of course, we actually have the Mecha Kuros, aka Hoppers, here. Well, they're not as annoying as the Fleas in Cutman, that's the one I was referring to. I would also like the music to change around a bit, but of course that is impossible in this engine. Now we have the room with all the killer bullets. And now the segment with the green footholder. I'm really thankful that the segment in Iceman stage only utilized the orange footholders. Really appreciate that. NATO time. Okay, so there is some forced weapon usage of the magnet beam, but if you die, you're sent back to the beginning of the stage where you have access to all of those 8 weapon capsules, so it isn't too bad. Yeah, I really don't want to deal with double Ben Ks. Okay, now we're in stage 2, outside the fortress. Now we're going down the waterways. I'll just damage boost through all of these enemies. Instead of having boss rematches, we instead have enemy spam, or a lot of enemies fighting at once. Don't take the left route, there are spikes at the bottom, and a free tank which I don't want. Alright, stage 3, which is actually the waterways. We even have the original background, I think. Oh, we have an oil slider segment instead of being pushed forward by the waterways. That's neat. What isn't neat is the screens suddenly stuttering. At least the checkpoint is right over here, and they're full weapon capsule refills in case you need them, so another plus to the developer there. Another spike jumping segment, more stuttering. I should have thought of that earlier. I could have also used access to the magnet beam, or just chained multiple NATOs together. That way I could have made this segment a lot easier on myself. Thank goodness the level creator gave me options for it. Okay, so this is the variant of the boss fight, where we need to instead fight 4 Coltons at once, instead of fighting the CPU whatever that was. So instead, just utilize 2 hyper bombs to destroy it. Or just utilize the brick drop, which is the equivalent of the weakness of the original boss fight, which was the super arm plus blocks. Okay, final segment. Really, that last segment with the oil slider sliding was more difficult than its original variation in Mega Man 1's Wily Tree. But then again, that's more due to engine problems, or stuttering, due to the stage being so large. Now we have this final gauntlet that we need to go through. Just waiting for the crash lift to return. Instead of a Yashiki, we have a free EM tank, which I'll gladly take. After all, I can use it anywhere. And instead of fighting this mini-boss encounter, I'll just fly away. This is a neat way of introducing more variety in terms of mini-bosses. Just increase the number of tougher enemies on top of each other, or just stack them on top of each other. Although that means they're really weak against weapons that freeze them in place like this one, or multi-hit piercing weapons like here. It does make them more immune against weapons like the brick drop though. Now that I think about it, I should have split off this level into its own part. In retrospect, oh well. I'll put it in the same part as Joe's level. Because this is extending over 45 or 50 minutes long in total. Now we have this final falling segment where we fight Bomb Man, who bounces really high, of course. And I guess he has no weakness. Okay, his weakness is the Firestorm. Originally we would fight the Wily Machine here, but unfortunately we can't. Shame we don't have fortress bosses in this engine. This would be a perfect place to put them. So that was the end of Mega Man 1 Megamix by MrDocRobot. It was a nice Megamix slash remake slash remix of all of the levels from Mega Man 1 and Mega Man 1 Powered Up. And boy does it live up to its title being a Megamix. The first sections of every level is about as accurate or equivalent as it could be in this engine, and then it branches out further and further as we go further and further into the level. I do like some of the replacements for each of the challenges, like for example, replacing all the Guts Lift segments with Crash Lifts, and some of the enemy variations as well. It was a nice trip down memory lane, and honestly, many of these segments were a lot less frustrating and somewhat easier in comparison to their Mega Man 1 counterparts. I also liked how you gave access to some other special weapons, like for example the NATO as well as the Shine if you had access to certain special weapons, just to fill out the extra slots of weapons we could have, aka 2 more instead of the usual 8 at max. And I liked as close a variation as possible, and I did like how you replaced the Super Arm with the Brick Drop and how it was a lot better in comparison. Although there were some snags like the persistent complaining of the stuttering that happened in certain parts of levels, which was a bit problematic with the Guts Man segment, the Elect Man stage, specifically one part, as well as the oil sliding segment of the Wily Tree recreation. That was definitely harder than its original incarnation, which just pushed you forward through several series of enemies instead of instant death spikes. At least that's what I can recall. At the very least, with stuff like the Magnet Beam, as well as NATO, you do have options or multiple ways of going through each of these challenges, so for that I do approve of what you did with this stage. It's definitely my favorite level to part, although that isn't really saying much because there are only 2 levels. So in the next part, I'll be covering at least a few more viewer submitted levels. Well then, thanks for watching and have a nice day. Toodles!